will get something out of today's presentation. Because I know what it's like. Sometimes we can be absolutely overwhelmed when we go to search for things. And so what I hope we can do today is help you avoid feeling like this. If you haven't used our site before, again, it's free, FamilySearch.org. You can go there and register. And once you've registered, you have access to all of our information that we have available, except for some restricted records where you need to go to an affiliate or a family history center to view. So today, what I'd like to review with you is searching the family tree, and I'll explain a little more about that. Searching the catalog. Those of you who used to use our microfilm will be familiar with that, but there have been some developments with the catalog that will be of interest. Searching historical records. This is the place, the main place that people go to where they can search through our name index. Searching memories. That's something that you may not be aware of. Another way of searching for names, searching by parents. We'll also look at searching images and what that means. And something that is probably one of the things that's well hidden in our site is some of the oral genealogies. And this would be particularly helpful if you're helping somebody who may have, whose family may come from the Pacific, or we also have some Maori oral genealogies as well. And I'll show you how to find those. And those could be fascinating for some people. So to begin with, family tree, and before we go there, I'll just explain something about our website. Family tree is a place where people can start to build their trees. And when you put information in the tree of any living people, that is private information. Only you can see that. We are looking at a way that you can share your information about living people with other people, but that would be by invitation only, people that you would allow to see that living information about living people. We recognize that that's private, and so we're very careful about that. But if you load people into your tree who are now deceased, then anybody can actually see that information. And that has some real benefits. There are a few pitfalls of that, but the reason that we are building the family tree is that we have a massive ambition to actually build a collaborative tree of all mankind, basically, so that we can see how all of the families of the world link together. And at the moment, we have well over 1 billion names in this collaborative family tree. So how we get there, we come back, once we've registered and logged on, this is what our homepage looks like. And we can see some of the places that we've been viewing and so forth. And we come here to our top menu. So that's what it looks like. That's a closer look. And we want to look at the family tree. So I click on family tree. There's a drop-down menu, and I click on find. And I come here to this search engine. Now, when I search here, the only things that I'm searching for are people who are within the family tree. When you use this search engine, you're not searching for records that we have in other places on our website. This is simply to search through names that people have uploaded into the family tree. So I'm just going to give you an example of that. So you'll also see I've underlined you can search for a person by name or by their personal ID number. So each person that's loaded into the tree receives a personal identifier number, and that becomes very useful and helpful for some functions in the tree. So I've simply listed in here or have put the name of one of my ancestors, George Coley. I've noted that he's a male. I've also put his place of birth. Now I could have put England, Kent, and even the village of Cranbrook, where I believe this person comes from, but I've just put Kent in this situation. I've put 1810. I can actually put a range of the years there if I wish to, but I'm quite confident about that year. And then I click find, and then that brings up all of the hits within the family tree, this collaborative tree. Now you notice that there are 266,118 results. Now, if you look down, you see the third name there is Edgar George Harold Coley. So it's more than just a George Coley hit. There will be derivatives of that name and even names that sound like George Coley. But obviously that's an awful lot of names to search through. But in this instance, the person at the top of the page is the person that I'm actually looking for. I put in the birth year of 1810, and I also put that they were from Kent. And so I can see George Coley, and I can also see over here George Coley's parents. So I'm going to click on George Coley, and it brings me to this page. And this is the personal details page of George Coley. We can see that there's information, name, sex, birth, christening, and in this case, there's two sources. Now, something that you'll want to look for, if you find somebody in the tree, you want to see if they've got any sources, because you want to make sure that the information is correct. Keep in mind that people who are putting information into the tree, some of them are very good genealogists who have researched well and whose information will be very accurate. But we also have a lot of novices, and so there could be inaccuracies in the tree. So I want to check these sources out, and there's two of them. The first is England Births and Christenings, and the other is the Nonconformist Recording Index. I want to have a look at this second one, so I check the source, and I come over here. In this instance, there's no image available for the actual record, but we do have information that has been transcribed from the record. So we see George Coley, we see that this was a baptism event, we've got a christening date, we've got the place, Cranbrook, Kent, and we've also got the parents' names. Again, very helpful information, and also it helps me to feel more confident that this is the correct person in the tree and that the information is correct. Now we go back to this person's page and we can scroll down the page, and then we see again George Coley on the left, the parents, William and Elizabeth. Below that we also have George and the siblings. Now what we can also do, we can go to George Coley's father, William Coley, and if we click on his name, it brings up this box to the right. And we see that William Coley was born in 1783 in Cranbrook, Kent. 19 sources. So my level of confidence about this record is pretty good. And then we can click on person, and we go back and we come to William Coley's persons page. Before we were looking at George Coley's persons page with all of his details. Now we're looking at William, and now over to the right, we see William's father. We don't see his mother, but again, this has taken us back a further generation. So if you're doing some research and you can't find a record, sometimes you might want to check the tree to see if you can find something that looks like it might be the right person. Then you can check the sources and just go through the checking process to see if this has provided you with a really good clue for perhaps the next generation. Let's now have a look at some catalog search. And again, a lot of you who used to use our microfilm would be familiar with this, because this is where we used to go to look for a microfilm that we would then order to view either at one of the church family history centres or at an affiliate library such as the Auckland City Library. So I click on search and I have a bunch of options there, but I go down to catalogue and I click on catalogue and I come to this search page. Now in this situation, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the name of the area that I want to look at. I want to see if there's any records specifically for Cranbrook in Kent, England. You'll also notice that I've selected online because all I want to look at are any microfilm that have been digitized and that are available to now view online on the website. I then click search and it brings me here. So I see that there are some microfilm here. And if I go to, I want to have a look at these church records indexes. So I click on that line and it brings me here. Again, this will be familiar. If you used to go here to check for microfilm, I click on the highlighted area, the parish register printouts, and it brings me to this page here. Now there's the film number, but you'll see next to the blue arrow, there is a camera. And the camera tells me that I can now view that microfilm in a digital format right here on the website. If you see a camera that has a key above it and you click on that, it will tell you that you can't view it from home, but you will be able to view it at an affiliate library such as the Auckland City Library, or at one of the church family history centres, or it might be available to view at both of them, but it will say where you can view that. But this one here, because there's no key above it, it's just a camera, we can click and we can now see the microfilm that's now been digitized and is available to view. Now, these were the church record, it was an index, so I know that this is going to be in alphabetical order. I want to look for the same person, George Coley. So, and I also see that there are 1,985 of these actual frames of images. So I'm going to do a little search in alphabetical order. I'm going to have a closer look at this frame here. And I see that this is Thomas Bartholomew and Henry Bigg and Thomas Bishop down the bottom. So I need to move further through the frames to get to the C's because I'm looking for George Coley. So I move a few frames ahead, I click on there and I see I'm at William Clout going down to Colebrook, and then right at the bottom I see William Coley and Elizabeth. And I think, okay, that sounds familiar. That was the name of the parents of George Coley. So I'm now going to scroll down the page and there I have George Coley, but also I now see that there are the other children of William and Elizabeth Coley, together with George, his siblings, at least those that were listed at this point in the parish printouts. So using just some logic as we go through those microfilm, it kind of removes us from the situation where we're looking for a needle in a haystack. Now, sometimes on a microfilm, there might be birth, deaths, and marriages on a single roll of film, or and it might be in chronological order rather than in a order of names. So it's just a matter of figuring out how the microfilms have been laid out and just searching through accordingly. Now what we're going to look at is probably the place that most people go to, which is record search. So this is where we're searching through all of our records that have been indexed. So we come back to the search option. The top option is records. We click on there and we come to this page here. The search engine is on the left and on the right is a map of the world. I'm again using this individual as an example, George Coley, birthplace Kent, England. I could have put Cranbrook in there as well, which would have reduced the search results, but I'm going to go a little broader. Birth year 1810, and I'm going to click search. Now, in this case, I've got 53,899 possible matches. That's a lot of matches. And there's a way that we can filter through that. But in this case, George Coley is right at the top of the page. And this, in fact, is the person I was looking for. Birth year 1810. Again, it's got this christening here of 1818. And right over to the right, we can view the record. Again, in this instance, we don't have an actual image of the original record. This again is a transcribed record. But there we have the information. George Coley, christening, the christening date, where it took place, the birth date, and of course, the parents' names again. So all very helpful information, and interesting that we put in that George Coley with the birth date, a place, and as you could see, that was the hit right at the top of the page, even though there were about 50,000 possibilities. Something that you can also use when you search, you can use a wildcard. So what does that mean? It looks like this. I've put in here George Coley. Now we know that over time, the way that names are spelt change. So maybe there's two L's, maybe there's no E. We just don't know. So we can put a wildcard in between a couple of letters. Now in this case, I've narrowed it down and I've actually included the name of the village Cranbrook. Because if you remember, on the last search, we got 58,000 possibilities. But now we're going to search, and as a result of that, you'll see that I've narrowed that down to 638 possibilities. But again, in this case, the result is right at the top of the page. George Coley, born 1810, the christening date, and again, the parents. So what I'd like to do for a moment is just, I'm going to just try and, I'm going to start sharing the website for a moment as I'd like to show something to you. Okay, I'll share the screen again, and all right, so hopefully you're with me here. So I'm on the live site now, and I'm going to do a search. Again, I'm going to search George Coley, birthplace. I would just put Kent. In fact, I'm going to leave that completely open. I'm going to put the birth year of 1810. And so I'm now going to do a search. Now, you'll see that I've got 73,000 results because I just put the name in and a birth year. Now, in this case, it's this first one at the top of the page is the actual correct result, but I want to show you how we can narrow things down. So I know that George Coley was born in England. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to select here, United Kingdom and Ireland. So when I do that, I narrow the search down to 308 from 73,000 by stipulating that they were born in the United Kingdom. Now, here, England, I've got 143. So again, I'm going to narrow it down further. And now I can actually narrow it down further by selecting the county of Kent. So I've narrowed 73,000 down to just 6 people by using those filters. The reason I wanted to show you that is that sometimes if we put too much information into the search, we may miss some things if we're slightly out with that information. So we can go very broad and then use the filters to filter down and get to fewer people to look at. Do you remember how I said that names can be spelled differently? We've got Coley here, which is spelled quite differently. And so this is when these wildcards might be useful. Now I'm going to stop sharing for a moment again, and I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. If you can just bear with me, it will take a moment for this to work. Okay, hopefully you're all seeing that again. So the screen is just frozen up here for a moment. There we go. The next area of search we want to look at is memory search. Now we're going to go back to the tree for a moment. So we've moved from the tree. Now we've been searching through records and through the catalog. But now I want to go back to the tree for a moment, because we can actually search for memories, meaning that somebody may have written a story or have posted a document or a picture about one of my ancestors. And so what we can do here, along the top, we have a menu code, a menu item here, which is memories. And I'm going to select find, because I want to see if I can find a memory of somebody. So I'm going to click on there. And now what we can do, we can actually put a topic in here. For example, there may be in a family reunion that we're looking for, the name of the reunion, or I can simply search for one of my ancestors, William Frederick Higgins. I click on search, and sure enough, I find this story. So I click on the story, and it blows it out here. And this was actually me writing a memory about my grandfather. And but what we can then do, we see his name appears over to the right. We click on there, and then we go back to the person page. So we can find the person page. We see that there are 4 memories. So there are some other memories there at the top of the page. There's 4 sources there for him. Here's his vital information. We go down the page, and again, we can find he and my grandmother, and then his parents. And there he is again as a child of his parents. So it's quite useful that we can sometimes find a memory about one of our ancestors that we didn't know about, that someone else has posted. And it could be a picture, or it could be something we knew nothing about. But that's the beauty of collaborating in the tree, that these little treasures and gems may be made available to us. So I'm now going to go back to searching records, and I just want to show you something if you're not familiar with this little tip. So rather than searching for an individual themselves, sometimes all we have is information of parents, and we're not even sure if they had any children. So we come back to this search page here, and we'll see there that there's a search with a relationship, whether it be spouse, father, mother, or other person. Well, I'm going to select father, and I'm going to put the name of the father, William Coley. I'm then going to select mother, and I'm going to put the mother's name in there, Elizabeth. Now you notice that I've left the mother's last name empty, because if I put a name in there, I might restrict the search, because do I put the married name in there, or do I put the maiden name in there? And by putting one or the other, it may restrict some records that would otherwise be available. So I'm going to leave that blank. I'm going to, I've narrowed it down to Cranbrook, the actual village in Kent, England, and I search. And what I find here is that on the right-hand side, you see William and Elizabeth as the parents, and there's 194 results of people with similar names. Here's George Coley, the child of William and Elizabeth that we've seen in other records. But the great thing about this is that not only do we see the record, but you'll see I've added these blue marks here because in one search, searching by their parents, I found all of these children of William and Elizabeth. So it's a very good way to find information about a family by searching by using the parents as the key search elements. We can also search by country. So again, if I go to records, and we've got the search engine on the left, and on the right, we've got a picture of the world. Now I hover over Australia, New Zealand, and I come up with some options here. I click on New Zealand, and it brings me here. So here are the collections, the digital collections that have been indexed. And as we scroll down, we see other information in the catalogue. Some of this information may also be available to view digitally, just as we viewed the other catalogue material previously in the presentation. We come here, and I actually want to look at these probate records. By the way, we've still got 2 cameras in Auckland. We continue to digitize the remaining probates that are held in Auckland. And so I want to have a look at these records. So I click on here. Now, if we were to search here, we would only be searching through the probate records. When we've done the other searches, we've actually been searching through all of the billions of records. But if we select the actual record set, we can just search through here. But the thing about the probates is this, that we're creating the index as an ongoing enterprise. And so there may be some probates that have been posted on the website, but they have not yet been indexed. So if we come down here, we have the opportunity to browse through the probates, and there's close to 6 million of them. So how do we do that? Well, we click on Browse, and then we come firstly to all of the courts. So probates are all done within a high court. That's where they're lodged. And I want to look at a particular period of time of probates that were lodged at the Hamilton Court. So I click on Hamilton Court, and that brings me up with all of these options. In this case, I'm particularly interested with these years, 1904 to 1907. So I can click on that, and then it brings me to this page. Now you notice here, this is image 1 of 211 images up there in the left-hand side. So between that period of time, there weren't a lot of probates. Now you can imagine that a probate could have anywhere between, say, 7 and 20 images or papers, sometimes more. So I come over here and I want to have a wider view of this. So again, we come to this kind of look and feel. Now, these weren't originally microfilm. We've actually digitally copied these from the word go. And I can select to look at one of these as I'm trying to search for somebody. And I then bring this up, and this is the will of James, it looks like Harker. And in fact, we can blow that up and we can see how nicely we can view those images because of the quality of the digital camera that was used. Something else that we can also do, we can search by images. This is another option in the search. And again, we're often looking at microfilm here, but rather than searching for a place like I did before, we can simply put in a place right here, Glasgow, Scotland, and we can see what's available for that. Now there's 267 results. We can go to this top one, click on there, and then again, it gives us all of these records about Glasgow. And it's got Renfrew here, and we can look at one of these images, and again, we can take a much closer look at it, and you can see the detail that you can get to. So very, very useful. The last thing I wanted to look at today was searching oral genealogies. Now, I mentioned right at the beginning of the presentation that these are a hidden gem. I knew that they were available somewhere, and finally I figured out how to find them. So this is how we go about this. We go to search, we select genealogies, and we come to this page. But right here towards the bottom of the search page, we click on that little arrow there, and we have an opportunity to determine what type of search that we would like to do. Over to the right-hand side, it explains what each of these different type of genealogies are. In this case, I only want to look at oral genealogies. Now, we have some really good oral genealogies from the Pacific Islands, and also we have some oral genealogies of Maori families here in New Zealand. Now, I'm aware of a Samoan family named Fa'alongo, so I put that in, and again, all I want to do is select oral genealogies. I do search, and I come to this page. And then I have here a Panati Yusufa Fa'alongo. And I can click on that, and it brings me to this image here, which is a pedigree of types. And you'll see right to the right-hand side, there's an arrow there. And if I was to click on there, it would expand that out. So I know that there are several, generations. Right here at the top, you'll see the word more. If I click on that, it then brings this up. And basically, I have a number of options. I can look at a record of that oral genealogy, such as, and I can also listen to a recording of the oral genealogy. So here I have some lineages that have been laid out as a result of this oral genealogical interview that was conducted probably back in the 70s, in the 1970s. Here's some more information, and again, information here that was all obtained during this interview with an individual about their ancestry. But what is really significant is that you can also listen to the recording of that interview. And can you imagine how delighted someone would be if they were to listen to one of their, perhaps a grandfather, a grandmother, one of their descendants, relatives, and actually hear their voice talking about their oral genealogy and some of their memories about the family. So it's extremely powerful. And as a side note, at the moment in Africa, there's very few records there. And the elders of the villages traditionally kept the oral traditions and genealogies of the village, but things are changing very quickly in Africa. So right now, we have teams, we have many people going through Africa, collecting and recording oral genealogies to ensure that these records are not lost. So very exciting what's happening. So that's basically the end of today's presentation. Shona, if you're there, I'm not sure if there might be some questions.
Yes, there are questions, Mike. I can relay them to you. Dorothy says, if the source is someone else's family tree, will it be shown as one of the numbered sources in that little button with a number of sources in it?
So, sorry, can you just repeat that, just the first part of that question?
Okay, if the source is someone else's family tree, will it be shown as one of the numbered sources in that little button with the number of sources in it?
Yes, so if it's someone else's source, so I can actually search for any name in the tree, and anything that is there, just like we saw that on the example I gave, it may not be, if it's nothing to do with my family, but I was just inquisitive, and I find somebody in there. If it's got sources in there, then those sources would have been put on there by somebody else. But I can also add further sources to that as well. So those sources, it's a shared resource.
I guess what Dorothy's asking is, if something is listed as a source, does it include people's, does it include people that have just added someone?
Oh, sorry. No,
Yeah, rather than just official records.
no, we're usually, well, it could be, but usually when you go to add a source, you'll see that there's a whole lot of areas to fill out. So what you usually put in there is the actual source details, where the record is from, and there's a place, for example, to put a URL there to lead you to the actual source. So in many cases, in what I've done, there are a number of sources with links to Ancestry or Find My Past, so that somebody can follow that link right the way through to the actual source on those websites. If there's not a website, but I've got a document, I can also record it about that. But I guess somebody could put a source, and they could say something like, this is in speaking to my auntie, she provided this information. But then you would see that information, then you can make a judgment call as to whether or not you want to trust that. So I don't know if that's helping answer that.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Carol is saying, if you don't know where someone was born,
Yes.
you don't know their parents, where do you start to find them? For example, she's got here Gilbert Gillian's found, married 1798 in St Saviour's, Southwark in London. Anne Woodcock image available. How do I go back?
Okay, so you do have a place, and sorry, was there a date?
1798.
Okay, so you've got a name and a place and a date. So what was the information that was missing?
She doesn't know I'm a bit confused myself.
Doesn't know the
She says she
parents.
doesn't know where someone was born and doesn't know the parents. So where do you start to find them? Then she gives the details of Gilbert Gillian's Founds, married in 1798.
Okay, so there you've actually got something really to go on there. That you've got the name, you've got a place, you've got a place at least where they may have lived once, and the fact that there was a marriage there, I think as well you mentioned. So with anything like this, and I've got a lot of information where I'm kind of stuck. I've got a name, but I don't know who the parents are, and so I'll just go in and see what I can find about that person, but then always try and find at least another couple of sources that corroborate what I've found. I think on our side, what people need to remember is that you might be looking for something this week and you can't find a thing, but you could go back in another couple of months and you could find a whole lot of information about that individual, because we're continually adding information to that. But the thing that I would mention, I'm not a professional researcher at all, and so and neither am I a professional genealogist. So if you've got something like that, I'd probably just be reaching out to friends and someone with a little bit more experience to see if they can help me find something. I'm sorry, I can't really answer too many kind of hardcore research questions, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Caroline says, how do I find out more about my German ancestry when records are mostly in German? Are there any collections that have been translated?
That's a good point. One of the things that you could do you could look at the wiki, the FamilySearch Wiki. You could do a search for the place in Germany to see what resources are available. The other thing that you might do, because I know that recently we have added millions and millions of German records onto our site. So what you could do, you could actually send an email through to support@familysearch.org. You could ask if somebody, you could explain what you're looking for, and is there anything that's been translated, or is there anyone that could help you with that? Because I do know we have a lot of German records now. Whether or not they've been translated into English, I just wouldn't know. I'm sorry. I've not been very helpful today. I'm sorry.
Another tip that I can give you is Google has got there are fantastic dictionaries, English to German or English
Yes.
to any language dictionaries available online. So if you just Google German to English, it'll come up, and you can put the words that are in German on one side of the box, and then it automatically translates it into English for you on the other side. And I know that with documents, you get to know the words that come up all the time, like birth, death, marriage, those sorts of things, in whatever language you're using. They come up on a regular basis, so you soon get to know what those words are. But you can use online translation like that as well. So I would recommend using the dictionaries that you can find on Google. It's so simple.
In fact, Shona, that's what our contact center we use when they get an email in a language that no one knows. They do the same thing. They just use Google Translation, and
yeah,
it may not be perfect. At least it gives you a very good indication what the person is inquiring about. So
yes,
in that great tool.
yeah. Christine is asking, how do I link a person onto the family tree?
Okay, so if you've already got an account in Family Tree, so what I would do, let's say that I'm searching for, let's say I've been able to get back 3 or 4 generations or more, and then I can't get back any further with my own research. So I then go into the tree, and I see, oh great, somebody has actually found the father of that individual. I can simply then attach that person, and there's a way of doing that. You just follow a process of attaching that person to the tree in that location, and then it will bring with it everything else that is associated with that branch. So what I've actually done on one of my lines, although I've still yet to check it completely, I was struggling to get back past about 4 generations. But then I found a parent of one of the last person I was able to find, and then it took me on a link all the way back to the 1500s, which was a huge benefit and a help to me. So it's just a matter of finding that and then attaching it to the tree. And if you're not sure how to do that, you can go to help at the top of the page, and it then opens up some options how to do things. You know, how do I attach? Or you can also go to Google, how to attach a name in family tree, and that's often the best way to actually see the instructions.
Mike, if I just say that when you're thinking, you're waving your hand and your glasses around, and
oh, I'm sorry.
in front of the camera.
Sorry,
so we can't see your face.
Oh, I didn't realize the
It's all
camera.
right.
I thought you just see my screen.
No. You see your face as well.
There we go. Sorry.
Deborah wants to know what the FamilySearch Wiki is.
Okay, so it's a collaboration. People from all over the world actually freely add information to the wiki. It's like any other wiki. And so it just grows and grows and grows. And so you just go to do a Google search for FamilySearch.wiki, or you can go to it directly from FamilySearch.org, and you type in a place and it gives you all the information that's about that place as far as searching for records. So it's just a collaborative site where people share information about what they found.
Yeah, it's kind of like an encyclopedia in a way, isn't it?
But
really it's a collaborative one. Yeah.
When you think of Wikipedia, it's the same type of thing, but this is just for genealogical resources.
And it's usually my go-to. Working in a library, you can imagine I get questions about family history from all over the world, you know, and unless you're researching in a particular country on a regular basis, you know, you're not going to know how to do something off the top of your head. So my go-to is usually the FamilySearch Wiki. If a customer comes in and asks me, oh, what records are there available for whatever country, and it's one that I don't use very often or don't go to very often, then I can just call up the FamilySearch Wiki, and that tells me what I need to know. And it gives me a good opportunity then to show the customer the wiki too. So yeah.
Yes, a great resource.
Okay. Fiona is commenting. It's fantastic. Fiona is asking or suggesting that a search in British newspaper archives found a small number of G.J. Founds variations. Thereon you might find some more. So that's outside the FamilySearch, of course. British Newspaper Archive is a fantastic resource. We offer that for free at the library too. Christine says, is the church still filming Pacific Island records?
Okay, good question. Mike. Actually, I forgot about mentioning that. So we're not filming anything just at the moment, but between the 70s and 1970s and 1990s, we filmed an incredible amount of records through the Pacific. And over time, you're going to start to see more and more of those records indexed and put on the FamilySearch website. An example of that was the Cook Islands, where basically microfilmed all of their civil records right the way through to about 19 1989, sorry. And probably about 3 years ago now, the government over there agreed to allow us to put everything, including information of people that are still living, up on the website with an index. So right now we're working on indexes for records from Fiji, from American Samoa and from Samoa. We've also got things in place where we hope to be doing work in places like Vanuatu and Kiribati and Niue. So I'm hopeful between now and perhaps the end of next year, you're going to see a lot more records in a searchable format for the Pacific Islands. And I'm also ever hopeful that we'll be able to do some, get some records from Tonga. So I'm working with the government because we have very little from Tonga at the moment.
Awesome. They're very popular here, the Pacific Island films. Oh yes, so Carol's saying thanks to Fiona. So that was Fiona's comment was for Carol's question. So sorry, I didn't make the connection at the time. CJH says a question missed above from Kathy Palmer, how to contact tree owners. Oh yes, thank you. So Kathy Palmer was asking, how do you contact tree owners? Okay,
so there's a couple of ways to do that. Sometimes when you can look, when you're looking at someone on the tree, there'll be a place in the detail information about the last people who actually made a change. You can click on that, and sometimes there'll be an email address, or you can simply send a message, and a message is then sent within FamilySearch itself. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the person that you've sent a message to is necessarily going to reply to you, because there's no guarantee that they will. But we have lots of people who are contacting each other about information in the tree, and the message system is probably the simplest one, because when you log on, you'll see if you've got any messages. You can click on there and you can see who's been trying to contact you. So a great way to collaborate.
Thank you. And I've run out of questions at the moment. Does anybody else have any questions, please? No? Okay. Well, I hope everyone found that useful. Is there anything you can tell us about what the future of FamilySearch is likely to be? What is in the future? Just keep digitizing?
Yeah, I mean, there's every week, you can actually, in your preferences, so if you have an account with us, in your settings, you go to preferences, you can choose to receive emails from FamilySearch. And so every week I get an update of millions of new records that have been added during that week. So there's ongoing activity. Some of the things that you might find of interest is that when you think about all of the microfilm we have, and you may ask, if you've got all of that microfilm, why is it not all available for everybody to see online? The answer to that is because we don't have, although we had rights to create microfilm and distribute microfilm, those old agreements didn't give us any rights in the digital age in which we now live. So we're working hard on getting rights to be able to share those microfilm images with everybody. And that's always our goal, to share as much information as possible. So that's an ongoing effort. But if you can imagine in time, if we were able to share all of those microfilm, the work involved in indexing all of that could take 100 years. But we're doing a lot of work with machine learning. And in time, those of you who have been indexing or have helped with our indexing initiatives, there's going to be a revolution in that machines are going to do most of the indexing for us. And our role will be just to check some of the things that the machines couldn't quite get right. And so we're going to see a huge speed up there in indexing efforts. So that's just one thing that's going on just to speed up the work.
Okay. Dorothy's asking, is there a way that finding a record in ancestry.com will often show the film number to look at on FamilySearch? Or are people aware that finding a record in FamilySearch.com or one of your other commercial partners will often show the film number to look at on FamilySearch?
The other thing, and thank you for mentioning that, the other thing I would mention, if you remember when we were looking at a person's detail page, on the right-hand side, if you have accounts with Ancestry or Find My Past and My Heritage, you can actually connect those to FamilySearch. And I have accounts with all of those websites. And so what it does for me is that if I have a person I'm looking at and I click on Ancestry, it would take me right to a hit in Ancestry. So the sites talk to each other. So that's something else that you can also do, and that helps incredibly.
That's interesting, because I didn't know that one. I have Family Tree Maker, which connects to Ancestry. And I have Family Tree Maker also connected to FamilySearch, but I didn't know that you could connect from Ancestry to FamilySearch direct. That's interesting. I'll have to look for that one.
Okay.
CJH is asking what your position is again, because he missed the beginning of your talk due to technical issues.
I'm the area manager for FamilySearch, so I look after. It's more of a general management position. So again, I'm not a professional genealogist or researcher. I look after all of the workings of FamilySearch in New Zealand and right the way through the Pacific Islands. So it's interesting during this COVID-19 thing, how many of us have been working remotely. Well, I spend my entire work life working remotely with our head office. So this has been business normal for me during this time.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got, and the answer, the reply back is great job. It is a great job. We've got a lot of people just commenting, saying thank you, excellent session, most informative. Leslie's just saying she's in Queensland, so we've had people join us from not just in New Zealand, which is good. Well, and if we have no other questions, no other questions.
Thank you for those kind comments, and it's been great to be here with you today, so thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, Mike. It's been really good having you in to talk for us, and being able to make use of technology where everyone can be in comfort, usually in their homes, although I'm in my office at the library, but that's no hardship. But yeah, thank you very much for that. This is really, really very good and very interesting. So I will let everybody sign out now. So if everybody wants to click leave the meeting, there's a bit of noise going on outside my door. Excuse my distraction.
Well, thank you, Shona, and we'll talk again.
Yeah, we will. We've got lots of people saying thank you for your time. I'll continue with my mission to add my sources onto the extended family tree. So that's good. That's good. So, okay, thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you. See you later.
See you later. Bye, Mike.
Bye.
Speak later.